I've been following this guy for a while. He's extremely smart, and the media covers him a lot too. And he's something. It's Curtis Yarvin, also known by the pen name. You're gonna have to pronounce the first word for me.
Mencius Moldbug.
Let's talk about the problem of Curtis Yarvin.
Curtis Yarvin.
Mencius Moldbug. He's
Curtis Yarvin.
For the crime of saying interesting things, Curtis Yarvin has been hounded nonstop by the people who write Wikipedia, by the banks, by the people who maintain the status quo at all costs.
If Nick Land is the Aleister Crowley of Silicon Valley, then Curtis Yarvin is its G.I. Gurdjieff. Gurdjieff taught that most humans are asleep, little machines running on unconscious habits. Yarvin took that logic to its darkest conclusions. In his earliest writings as Mencius Moldbug, he suggested that unproductive humans could be converted into biodiesel to power public transportation, a grotesque amplification he later claimed was a joke, but one that revealed the underlying brutality of his entire worldview. Welcome to Hidden America, where Magick meets Cybernetics, and the code behind reality reveals itself. Yarvin, who has been terminally online since the inception of the internet, once wrote, "The United States is a corporation in the hands of a corrupt managerial class. Its bankruptcy is not financial, but spiritual." Nick Land helped to provide a terrifying metaphysics of transhumanism, a vision of capitalism as an alien intelligence hell-bent on its own synthetic evolution. Land gave Silicon Valley the why, a reason to abandon humanism. But a machine needs an operating system. A sovereign needs a state. That operating system is dark enlightenment, and that architect is Curtis Yarvin. Where Land saw an inhuman current, Yarvin saw a broken machine, modern democracy. His life's work, written under the pseudonym Mencius Moldbug, is a total rejection of the democratic project, and it's a blueprint for its replacement by a technocratic monarchy. What began as an obscure online blog has become the covert playbook for a network of Silicon elites, reactionary intellectuals, and financial titans, including Peter Thiel, David Sachs, Elon Musk, Blake Masters, and even Vice President J.D. Vance. The result is not merely a political shift, but a theological inversion. The rise of the machine god, Ahriman. Act 1. Curtis Yarvin didn't emerge from nowhere. He was shaped in the pressure chamber of an elite, hyper-intellectual upbringing. Born in 1973 to a highly educated, secular, liberal family, Yarvin grew up inside the American diplomatic class. His father was a foreign service officer, which meant Curtis spent his early years drifting between continents, living in Cyprus, returning to Washington, and absorbing the quiet but undeniable truth that nations are machines and that real power is always administrative, hidden and bureaucratic. His mother homeschooled him through much of his childhood, and his intelligence was so extreme he skipped multiple grades, entering high school around the age of 12. He was the class prodigy, brilliant, alienated, and already disillusioned with the moral pretenses of adult society. By his teens, he'd been absorbed into the Johns Hopkins study of mathematically precious youth, an incubator for America's future technocrats. His grandparents came out of an old Jewish communist tradition. His household was secular, academic, and politically liberal, but instead of inheriting their idealism, Yarvin inverted it. While his family believed in progress and equality, Yarvin saw only managerial decay. Act 2. When Yarvin began writing as Mencius Moldbug in the mid-2000s, he wasn't speaking to the general public. He was writing for a very specific audience, the rising aristocracy of Silicon Valley. His essays weren't polished manifestos. They were long, labyrinth-coded transmissions, half political philosophy, half forbidden scripture, designed to attract exactly the kind of mind that was already questioning democracy, bureaucracy, and the decaying American empire. Tech elites recognized themselves in his words. Yarvin would reference Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. He spoke their language. They lived in a world where meritocracy still functioned, where systems could be optimized, where bad code could be rewritten, and where hierarchy was not a moral evil, but a practical necessity. In Moldbug, they found a thinker who treated the United States like a malfunctioning program, one that needed a total rewrite, not a patch update. This is exactly why his early writings spread like wildfire through venture capital circles, startup founders, and the tail orbit. He wasn't offering politics. He was offering a root-level recompile of civilization. And anonymity was absolutely essential to the spell. Yarvin understood that his ideas were radioactive in public, but irresistible in private. Under the Moldbug mask, he could say what no professor, no journalist, and no CEO could ever say aloud. The pseudonym gave him freedom, cover, and mystique. It allowed his ideas to be judged not by his identity, but by their potency. Anonymity turned him into a cipher, an underground philosopher whose blog posts were treated as contraband, intellectual currency. Within tech circles, sharing Moldbug essays became its own initiation ritual, a test of whether you were red-pilled enough to see the world as a system, not a society. Red-pilling was literally trademarked by Yarvin. Without anonymity, he would have just been another contrarian blogger. With anonymity, he became the ghost in the Silicon Valley machine, the hidden theorist shaping the worldview of billionaires, engineers, and the architect of the new digital future. But that's the issue. These psychopaths don't deserve to be able to remain anonymous. Evil is evil. In some of the more controversial blog posts, Yarvin stated that not all humans are born the same. Yarvin went as far as suggesting that some races are suited more towards mastery, while others are more suited to servitude. I'm sure you can guess which races he put into which category. These statements were widely condemned, and I'm presenting them here only to illustrate the extremity of Yarvin's earlier views, not to promote or endorse them in any way. Act 3.
Invested, do you think J.D. Vance is in democracy?
It depends what you mean by democracy. I mean, I think that the problem is basically when people equate democracy with good government. When you use that word, you're using a very tricky word.
From the very beginning, Yarvin treated democracy not as a sacred ideal, but as a malfunctioning operating system, a clunky legacy protocol patched together through centuries of sentimentality and wishful thinking. To Yarvin, democracy isn't the voice of the people, it's an illusion of participation, masking a deeper truth. Nobody is actually in charge, and everyone is accountable to everyone, except the actual outcomes. He believed democracy inevitably devolves into a sprawling bureaucracies running by committees, subcommittees, agencies, media pressure, activist classes, and unelected experts who claim moral authority while producing catastrophic results. In Yarvin's view, this is why Western nations drift into decay. Responsibility is diffused, incentives are inverted, and no one can shut down failing institutions because they exist to protect themselves, not to serve the public. His conclusion was radical. Democracy isn't broken. Democracy is the break. It is structurally incapable of producing competence, clarity, or coherent governance. And from that diagnosis came his most influential and infamous idea, the Cathedral. If democracy doesn't rule, then who does? Yarvin's answer was chilling in its simplicity. The real power is held by a decentralized, self-reinforcing network of institutions that manufacture consent, shape public morality, and dictate the boundaries of acceptable thought. He called this network the Cathedral. The Cathedral isn't a conspiracy. It's an ecosystem, a distributed, spiritual bureaucracy composed of universities, legacy media, HR departments, the culture industry, the non-profit sphere, and the civil service. To Yarvin, these institutions collectively behave like a single superintelligence, a memetic organism enforcing a secular religion, progress, equality, democracy, inclusion, not through law, but through narrative, not through force, but through belief. In his framing, the cathedral is the invisible priesthood of modernity, and democracy is merely its ceremonial mask. The cathedral is the software of our current reality. It doesn't rule by force, it rules by consensus. It doesn't silo dissent, it defines dissent as hearsay and excludes it from the conversation. It is, as Yarvin writes, an engine that constructs truth rather than discovering it. This aligns perfectly with Land's view of humanity as Phase 1 hardware. The cathedral is the parasitic software running on that hardware, creating a shared hallucination, a consensus reality that obscures the true, brutal logic of the Landian market. To the Gnostics, this is the work of the demiurge, the false creator god, who crafted a flawed, counterfeit reality to imprison the divine spark. Yarvin's cathedral is this demiurgic system, a false light concealing a deeper, more mechanistic darkness. It is the architect of the illusion that must be shattered. And this vision spoke to the emerging technocrats like Musk and Thiel. Act 4. If the cathedral is the disease, Yarvin's prescription is Neocameralism, or new kingship. His radical solution: treat government like a corporation. In Yarvin's vision, the nation becomes a joint stock corporation. Citizens become shareholders who receive dividends, not voters who elect representatives. Governance is handed to a CEO monarch, a single, competent executive with absolute control and total accountability for results. This is the political realization of Land's accelerationism. Democracy, with its slow debates and sentimental regard for human equality, is friction. It is the inefficiency that the Landian system seeks to optimize away. Yarvin offers the tool for that optimization. Replace messy democracy with the cold, efficient hierarchy of a corporate boardroom. Let's remember what Peter Thiel said. I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. He was articulating the core Yarvinian conclusion. Democracy is derived from the notion of every soul's inherent value. It's incompatible with the logic of pure market efficiency and technological optimization. The CEO monarch is the human and eventually post-human instrument of that logic. We see this move from theory to practice. J.D. Vance consistently frames policy not through a lens of democratic consent, but of national efficiency and competitive strength, a core neocameralist stance. Vance was chosen for VP after Peter Thiel lobbied Trump. Yarvin literally watched Trump's inauguration with Thiel. Elon Musk's governance of X and SpaceX operates as an explicit CEO as sovereign model, making unilateral decisions he argues are for the health of the corporate entity. Public opinion be damned. Act 5. Yarvin's method for breaking the cathedral is known as rage. Rage officially stands for Random Acts of Government Efficiency, but inside Yarvin's circle, it was always understood as retire all government employees. This is the real program hidden beneath the memetic camouflage. The central idea of rage is to reboot or hard reset the American government by purging the existing civil service. This would make way for a leader with absolute, unchecked executive authority. Yarvin has suggested someone like Steve Jobs or Mark Andreessen. At one point, Yarvin even said Elon Musk was the perfect candidate for the CEO monarch. Now, this is not mindless destruction. In Yarvin's view, it is calculated, provocative disruption designed to shatter the cathedral's consensus and reveal the true power structures beneath. And we can see this playbook in action. Since January, Trump has signed 217 executive orders, many falling in line with the hypothetical framework of Project 2025, an initiative launched by the Heritage Foundation in April 2023 that was also deeply influenced by Yarvin's ideology. It plans to reshape federal governance via a unitary executive theory, centralizing power under a strengthened presidency. So what's this mean? A massive loyalty purge, replacing civil servants with ideologically vetted appointees, where all woke programs are purged. Remember, rage is retire all government employees. All these executive orders signaled a methodical rollout of this blueprint into practice. It is no longer hypothetical. And then came the most memetically powerful act of rage, the establishment of the Department of Doge. It was dismissed as a joke by the cathedral, exactly as intended. Doge became the organizational core executing the rage program. AI-driven analysis of federal workers, automated loyalty scoring, mass layoffs, DEI purges, bureaucratic restructuring at scale. Over 260,000 federal employees were quietly erased from the system, abolished under the banner of efficiency. At the head of Doge, Elon Musk. This was dark enlightenment injected directly into the bloodstream of the American government.
I'm not just MAGA. I'm dark, gothic MAGA.
What do you think could have been done if you just had like full reign and total cooperation? How much do you think you could have saved?
I mean, what level of power are we assuming here?
Godlike.
Oh yeah, I could probably cut the federal budget in half. And get more done.
That is so crazy.
Now, Mr. Yarvin will likely blame the failures of dictatorship on a poor choice of CEO or on too many checks on their power. But I think if recent experience and history teach us anything, it's how hard it is to find someone who absolute power does not absolutely corrupt. Take Elon Musk, for example. For years, Mr. Yarvin and the people around him have held him up as the perfect CEO monarch. And yet, given something like that opportunity earlier this year, he was so mired in personal distractions, amateurism, and administrative chaos that his own agency became something of a murderous clown show. And can we really blame that on too many checks and balances?
When Musk declared, "I am Dark MAGA," it wasn't a meme. He was announcing the arrival of the Dark Enlightenment. This is Ordo ab Chaos. Order born through engineered upheaval, order out of chaos. And the public, exhausted by decades of institutional failure, is ready to accept efficiency over democracy, all according to plan. Act 6. The meticulous, cold-eyed philosophies of Land and Yarvin demand a specific kind of instrument to shatter the existing order, and they found it not in a calculated intellect, but in a force of pure, instinctual disruption. Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not the architect, not the sovereign, but the lightning strike, a force of pure chaos, fracturing the cathedral, tearing open the old system and leaving a vacuum in his wake. Yarvin called him the accidental monarch prototype. But what comes after the chaos? Who will step into the breach? Who will claim the crown of the new technocratic order? Part 2 will answer these questions, and the digital demiurge is watching.